In the coming week, the airwaves, well, they'll be swamped with the words impeachment inquiry.
The center of this new impeachment inquiry.
We call it an impeachment inquiry.
Before launching an impeachment inquiry,
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announces an impeachment inquiry.
The government whistleblower who set off the impeachment inquiry.
We really only have one topic to discuss.
Here's a live look at where the high-stakes hearing with the acting director of national intelligence.
What is in that whistleblower's complaint?
It is in the Constitution.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo subpoenaed for Ukraine documents.
These past 10 days in September may prove pivotal. Key moment in the impeachment battle.
What I think has shifted is sort of the moral implications inside the Democratic caucus.
Donald Trump will leave Congress, in my view, no choice but to initiate impeachment.
Oy vey, as my loving grandma used to say. Don't get me wrong, we have a corrupt president. Not exactly breaking news. Should he be impeached? Yeah, for about 25 things. But do you need me to tell you that? Do you need Status Coup to cover this wall to wall? I don't think so. But let me tell you something else that's very scandalous. The fact that Flint, Michigan still does not have clean water 5.5 years later. The fact that Newark, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, Cleveland, parts of Florida, parts of California, parts of Massachusetts, Detroit.
So the residents have had to bear this burden of the city screwing up, the state screwing up.
So this issue about water is a growing crisis in the Midwest, if you ask me.
And many other cities in America also have water problems. Another scandal. Black men continued to be executed by the police in the United Corporations of America.
So it's many inconsistencies that's in the situation. So we know, that it's plain out murder.
I understand or have some understanding of police culture, that they like to protect their own.
For years and decades, it's been an open season for black men.
After they dragged him for several feet, they put him back on the ground face down.
Another scandal. State parties all over the country, Democratic state parties, are screwing local progressive candidates, just like the DNC screwed Bernie Sanders in 2016. Another scandal. Fracking and these crude oil, natural gas, totally unnecessary, totally toxic pipelines are being built at a record rapid pace, and there are fighters on the ground getting no media coverage.
Since when is profit more important than water? When is profit more important than people?
So, if you want 24/7 Trump, 24/7 impeachment, 24/7 Ukraine, 24/7 Russia, whatever other scandal of the day, not your guy. But if you want on the ground, in the field reporting of the actual, true, long-lasting, happening way before Trump scandals in America, become a member. StatusCout.com/join for as low as a cup of coffee a month. StatusCout.com/join. Help us build the media revolution. We go out in the field. We've been all over this country in the last 2 years.
Standing Rock. I've been with you. I've been with you since Standing Rock.
Wow, you got me on right now. We're doing it, baby. We're going to South Bend. It's time you show the real Mayor Pete.
In 100 days, they tore down 1,000 houses in 100 days.
Thank you, whether it's Standing Rock or Flint or everything else you do. You know, you guys, it's not even like watching news. It's just watching truth, you know.
It's not me and you, Jordan. It's the ruling class. It's David Koch. It's the Walton family, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. It's them, not us, that benefit from these illegal offensive wars.
Come on over here. Whoa!
We're here at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, and you are going to see live the actual caucus process. We are here.
We go out in the field, and we give the microphone back to the people.
Yo! Cool! I know who you are, yo!
How you doing, man?
You're the man, yo!
Unmarked pills, okay.
Ooh, essential oils, purification. Oh, peppermint, la la la. Love it.
I am worried about Jordan, testing positive. He doesn't have any breathing difficulties right now, but he definitely has a cough that's been really bad and that's been hurting his chest.
That's Fury right there. I've cleared out the desk and now got my drill a hole and we'll see how this goes. Hopefully well. I know a general idea of what I want, essentially, so I'll try and get all this down to about a minute, get the main points, especially I got 2 videos at least for Flint.
The bottom line is, it's Sunday morning, I'm preparing for my Sunday live stream, which usually takes me about 2 hours to prepare for before the live stream. And I got an email from a viewer.
Hey guys, Jen Dice here with a behind the scenes video. First of all, thank you so much for being a member. It's because of you guys that Jamal and I are able to be here. We can't thank you enough. It means just the world to us.
Millions and millions of people have been laid off. Millions more have had their hours cut. We're kind of living in a quiet, silent depression. What do you call 45 million people filing for unemployment?
$1,200 in 3 months makes no sense. Makes absolutely no sense.
Everybody should be paying attention to what's going on because this is happening in every county, not just Louisville, Kentucky. And that's why the world is like, wait a minute, enough's enough.
And one thing I do know is if you're not sitting at the table, you are on the menu. And it seems like we continue to be on the menu.
I don't want to have to lose everything that we worked really hard for. We've been struggling for 5 years, and then we finally got everything together, and it just instantly went away.
Literally driving across the country during the pandemic, talking to people, finding out what's going on.
There are people such as yourself and other people that are telling the true story of what is happening.
All of these black people have been assassinated by police in this city, and none of them have been brought to justice.
People don't really care about those things in places where, you know, we're not New York, we're not Chicago, we're not Minneapolis, we're Louisville, Kentucky.
If somebody calls you screaming for help at 911, they never treated her. They never came to her apartment, nothing.
Vote, and do what's right in your heart because change comes from within. So as long as your heart is pure and you're doing what's right, that's what matters.
Once upon a time, there was truth in journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative hid the truth of mass suffering, injustice, and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live. Wednesday, September 16th. 4 days. 4 days till my birthday. Just throwing that out there. Hope everybody's having an okay day, staying safe in these trying pandemic times. There's a lot to discuss today. I'm going to go very, very in on President Trump. I don't cover him often, but I don't think you can avoid this town hall last night. I don't know what's worse, Trump or the lack of journalism. Because if that were me on stage with Trump, he'd be hurting today. So we're going to get into that. Interesting piece out regarding Bernie Sanders and the future of the Bernie movement, if there is a Bernie movement. So I'm going to get into that. Also, we have a report from Jen on this horrifying horrifying story. Allegations that ICE facilities have done forced hysterectomies on immigrants, on immigrant women. It's just when you think there's no rock bottom for this country, rock bottom. So Jen has that. So we're going to get into all of it. And if you were paying attention yesterday, independent journalist Jason Peters was live for us from protests at the Trump town hall in Philadelphia. You are helping us pay for these things. Yesterday, thank you. We raised over $500 actually in our GoFundMe to help pay for freelancers like Jason, pay for our camera people. I'm actually talking right now to John, who is our camera guy, about possibly sending him to Portland, Oregon, to cover this Proud Boys, I don't know what you would call this, rally in Portland. What could go wrong? So definitely keep the GoFundMe donations coming. We really appreciate every amount. We're close to $120,000 raised now. And unlike some others, we're actually using the money for what we say we're going to use the money for. Journalists, cameramen, editors, advertising, travel, all of it. So keep it coming. GoFundMe, Super Chat. We really appreciate it. So let's get right into it. And remember, as always, please smash that like button. 250 people watching right now. 129 of you have pressed that like button. It's the thumbs up right under the video, whether you like me or not. Fake it till you make it. Also, if you don't know, just a quick reminder, we now have Status Coup hats by popular demand. Get your Status Coup hat for the fall or winter. Somebody also asked, can we get Status Coup snow hats, which is a good idea. So we'll have to work on that for winter. But you could get Status Coup hat, Status Coup flat rim. There's 3 different versions, so definitely check it out in our store. We'll put the link in the Super Chat for you. And let's get to it right now. So Trump had a town hall last night. I think that nothing really from Trump surprised me. I was fairly, I guess I wasn't surprised at the lack of journalistic pushback. So I'm going to do the pushing back since George Stephanopoulos couldn't be bothered. I tweeted out, in some areas, I was pleasantly surprised that George Stephanopoulos, ABC's wildly overpaid anchor, was decent pushback. But for the most part, Trump got away with hot air, nonsense, substanceless hot air balloons, and lies, of course. So I'm going to put on a little journalistic display if you'd allow me. I don't know if I'd ever get in front of Donald Trump to ask him any questions, but if I did, I think you'd see a very different outcome, I could humbly say. So the first clip I want to play just teeters on the total bizarre. Let's take a look at this.
Proven to spread of COVID. The wearing of masks has proven to lessen the spread of COVID. Why don't you support a mandate for national mask wearing, and why don't you wear a mask more often?
Well, I do wear them when I have to and when I'm in hospitals and other locations, but I will say this. They said at the Democrat convention they're going to do a national mandate. They never did it because they've checked out and they didn't do it. And a good question is you ask, like Joe Biden, they said we're going to do a national mandate on masks.
He's called on all governors to have them. It is a state responsibility.
No, but he didn't do it. I mean, he never did it. Now, there is, by the way, a lot of people don't want to wear masks. There are a lot of people think the masks are not good. And there are a lot of people that, as an example,
who are those people?
Well, I'll tell you who those people are. Waiters, they come over and they serve you and they have a mask. And I saw it the other day where they were serving me. And they're playing with a mask. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying what happens. They're playing with a mask, so the mask is over, and they're touching it, and then they're touching the plate. That can't be good. There are a lot of people. If you look at Dr. Fauci's original statement, you look at a lot of people, CDC, you look at a lot of people's original statement, they said very strongly, George, don't wear masks. Then all of a sudden they went to wear masks.
So, oh, where do you even begin? Where do you even begin? First of all, to state the obvious, he says at the Democratic National Convention, they said they're going to do a national mask mandate, but they never did it. Who's going to do the mandate? Joe Biden's not president. I mean, this is kind of obvious. I'm not like defending Joe Biden, but like, he just says that shit, bizarro world, up is down things. What does that even mean? Where is George Stephanopoulos to say, what are you talking about? Joe Biden can't make any decisions right now. He's not the president. You are the president. And by the way, George Stephanopoulos, incorrect. It's not a state level thing. Trust me. Does Donald Trump look like somebody that follows the Constitution or law rigidly? If the president wanted to issue a national mask mandate, he could do it. And there are specific laws citing pandemics, citing health disasters, that presidents and the federal government supersede state law. So when Stephanopoulos says, oh no, Biden's recommending the states do it, first of all, that's not what Biden said. Biden was asked, if your health expert said, we need to do a national mask mandate, would you do it? Or would you shut down the country? And he said yes. That's accurate. But number one, Stephanopoulos just lets him get away with saying this nonsense and creating this. It's not even reality. That's where a journalist says, what are you talking about, Mr. President? Joe Biden has no power to issue a mask mandate right now. You do, but you're deflecting onto Joe Biden didn't follow through with his promise to issue a mask mandate. Are you breaking news tonight that Joe Biden is the shadow president and he has power right now? What are you even talking about? So that was number one. And of course, George Stephanopoulos, these corporate journalists are only going to go up so far. And by the way, let me do a quick roll call because I didn't thank everyone. And we just got another donation. Thank you, Regina, $9 in the GoFundMe. Really appreciate it. And $25. Anonymous, $25. Anonymous, $45. Chris, $5. Anonymous, $5. Anonymous, $10. Tim, $5. Rudy, $50. Anonymous, $15. Monica, $20. Maria, $10. Anonymous, $10. Matt Bailey, $10. Anonymous, $10. Janice, $15. Preston, $10. Lisa, $10. So a lot of these are after we sent an email yesterday and during Jason's reporting. So thank you so much. Keep those GoFundMe donations coming. We really, really, really appreciate all the contributions. It's helping us pay for our freelance journalists, pay for John, our cameraman, pay for travel, pay for advertising, cover these costs that we desperately need. So that was the first clip. George Stephanopoulos, asleep at the wheel. That's where you say, President Trump, I wouldn't even say with all due respect, you're just making up nonsense right now. You know Joe Biden has no power, or the Democrats have no power to issue a mask mandate. So what are you even talking about? Stop deflecting. Stop creating, alternate narratives. That's first. Then you have this one, which to me was beyond cringeworthy.
For Jill Stein last time.
How you doing?
Subject from Pastor Carl Day. He's from Philadelphia, voted for Jill Stein last time.
How you doing, Mr. President?
Good.
You've coined the phrase, make America great again.
Right.
When has America been great for African Americans in the ghetto of America? Are you aware of how tone deaf that comes off to African American community?
Well, I can say this. We have tremendous African-American support. You've probably seen it in the polls. We're doing extremely well with African-American, Hispanic-American at levels that you've rarely seen a Republican have. If you talk about Make America Great, if you look at just prior to, and I'm talking about for the black community, you look just prior to this horrible situation coming in from China when the virus came in, that was probably the highest point. Home ownership for the black community. Home ownership, lower crime, the best jobs they've ever had, highest income, the best employment numbers they've ever had. If you go back and you want to look over many years, you could just go back 6 or 7 months from now. That was the best.
So what you have there is Trump disrespecting the voter. That's not what he asked. He didn't ask you to give a dissertation on surface level numbers that the black unemployment was at an all-time low. On the surface level, yeah, but the racial economic gap is still wide as ever. Black people are still making far, far less than white people. But what he asked, which George Stephanopoulos didn't get in there, was no. He's not asking, what do you think you've done for the black community? He's asking, when you create a narrative, make America great again, when was America great for black people? Name a time. Name an error. I mean, it's pretty obvious. There is no time that America has been great for black people. And Trump is intentionally blind to that because, I mean, Trump actually rose to wealth and power by exploiting black people, by predatory real estate practices. His father, Fred Trump, famous for price gouging real estate and rental costs to black people. Trump, apple didn't fall far from the tree, but he can't answer him, and he shifts to his BS economic talking points when, all right, you want to say under Trump, black unemployment went lower than it's ever been? Fine. I go around the country. I could tell you the majority of black working people, times are not booming for black economic people, and it's disrespectful to me. If I'm obviously not black, but to me, it is disrespectful that the President of the United States equates a great period, or what greatness means for a race, with the economy. That's not the whole picture. It's about human rights. It's about social justice. It's about equal treatment on all things, whether it be housing, whether it be banking, whether it be, redlining, community inclusion. It's not just about the jobs numbers. Did George Stephanopoulos push back? Let's see.
Single moment in the history of the African American people in this country, I think, I would say.
Well, I mean, your statement is, though, make it great again. So historically, the African American experience, especially in these ghettos that have been redlined, historically, these ghettos that have systemically been set up and treated the way that they have been, the conditions of the drugs, the guns, and everything else that actually created the symptoms for what we see, that you profess to be just the democratic cities in themselves. These things have historically been happening for African Americans in these ghettos, and we have not been seeing a change. Quite frankly, under your administration, under the Obama's administration, under the Bush, under the Clinton, the very same things happen, and the very same systems and cycles continue to ensue. And we need to see, because you say again, we need to see when was that great, because that pushes us back to a time in which we cannot identify with such greatness. And I mean, you've said everything else about choking and everything else, but you have yet to address and acknowledge that there's been a race problem in America.
So if you go, well, I hope there's not a race problem. I can tell you there's none with me, because I have great respect for all races, for everybody. This country is great because of it. But when you
and by the way, isn't it telling that that guy does more journalistic pushback on the President of the United States than pretty much any journalist that routinely interviews the President? What does that say about our media? That's why we need a status coup in this country, which isn't even a country anymore. It's the United Corporations of America, as I say. But when Trump says, there's no problem with me, hey, George, this is where you kind of step in and you mention, well, President Trump, with all due respect, you say there's no racial problem with you. You said very, very terrible things about the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't have it in front of me. He's called them, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have it in front of me. He's called them a hate group. He's called them Marxists. So when you say there's no problem with me, how do you square that away with you demonizing the Black Lives Matter movement? Where is George Stephanopoulos? And by the way, it wouldn't have been much better with Jake Tupperware, Wolf Blitzerkrieg, or any of these people. But it's like, this is just easy pushback. This doesn't require a seasoned veteran journalist. So he says, there's no problem with me, but there is a problem with him. Aside from the, hey, look at my African American in the crowd. Aside from his history of exploiting black people in real estate, in his real estate career. You're calling one of the biggest and momentous movements in this country in the last decade, essentially a bunch of domestic terrorists. And there's no problem with you?
You go back 6 months and you take a look at what was happening, you can't even compare that with past administrations. When you look at income levels and a lot of things because of the job situation where they had the lowest income, the best unemployment numbers they've ever had, the black community by far. And that was solving a lot of problems. And you know what else it was? It was bringing people together. I was starting to get, just before this was, we were having a long run of success. I was starting to get calls from Democrats that, hey, it's starting to work. Let's get together. People that you would never have thought this would have happened with. There was going to be unity, but unfortunately that was hurt because we got set back. But now, I think next year is going to be one of our best years economically.
But income equality is still, income equality is higher. So, I mean, jobs can be produced, but at the same time, in a lot of these big major cities where African Americans are underserved, under-resourced, that's an $8 job. Does not mean that they can necessarily afford to live where they have to live or where they've been living at for the last 20 years.
Well, the income inequality, which I agree with you is a problem. I always agreed with that. But if you look under President Obama and Biden, the income inequality was phenomenal. It was record-setting. It was. It's
terrible. Getting worse now.
Well, we're talking about a plague coming in. Before the plague, we were doing very well. Now, we will soon be doing well again because we're going to have a fantastic third quarter. You're seeing the numbers come in. I think you're going to have a GDP that's mid-20s and maybe much higher. Somebody said 35. I don't know. That would.
So, tiny detail. But when you pivot, when your pivot is constantly, oh, well, the stock market's booming and record in the stock market and the third quarter. George Stephanopoulos might want to mention that tiny detail. Not only, most black people in America do not own stocks. Most people in America do not own stocks. So when your prism for if the working man or woman is doing well is the stock market, you're living in an alternate reality, Mr. President, and you're kind of not talking to the forgotten people, the forgotten man or woman that you had spoken about representing on election night in 2016. Remember he went out, his victory speech, everybody was shocked. He was shocked. Reportedly, Melania was crying. She didn't want him to ever become president. And he said, the forgotten man and woman of America will be forgotten no more. I don't think that forgotten man or woman is basically, their sunrise or sunset goes based on the stock market. But George Stephanopoulos, nope. And just a tiny aside before I move on to the next clip. And by the way, we got 400 people watching right now. 250 of you have pressed that like button. Thumbs up. right under the video. Please, please smash that like button. Thank you very much for the GoFundMe donation. John, $10. Tina, $10. We are now, what is that? $430. $430 away from hitting $120,000 raised. Oh my Lord. Keep it coming. I mean, honestly, I'm not very good at math, but 400 people watching, if 400 people left $5 each on GoFundMe, boy, that would cover quite a lot of independent in the field reporting. All I need is $5 from 400 people. Thanks. Now, what's amazing is when he says, we're doing incredibly well in the polls, better than most Republicans among black people. I mean, I don't know what the bar is on that, but yeah, I mean, if 13% of black voters supporting you is doing incredibly well. To be fair, if Donald Trump on election day, even though it's not really going to be election day, I think we're going to be looking at election month, if not season, it's going to be a disaster. The mail-in ballots, what they're doing with the Green Party shenanigans, it's going to be a disaster. But if Trump even sniffs 13% among black voters and sniffs what he's polling on right now among Latinos, he's around 30 to 33% among Latinos. 30 to 33% among Latinos, 12 to 13 among black people. Bad news for Joe Biden if Donald Trump, particularly the Latino numbers. But even if he's at 13% among black people, that is insane, first of all. But Joe Biden could very well lose if Donald Trump gets those numbers. But, I mean, George Stephanopoulos gets paid a lot of money to mention, well, President Trump, I mean, you're kind of at 13% among black people. I wouldn't say that's doing, overly well. So, the insensitivity, the lack of empathy, the lack of understanding for black people in this country is no surprise with this president. I mean, clearly Joe Biden is no darling or civil rights champion either. We've covered him extensively and his disastrous record. But the problem with Trump is every single thing is boiled down to the stock market, jobs numbers, which, as I tell you all the time, are all BS surface level. It doesn't matter what the unemployment rate says. What matters is A, the real unemployment number, B, how many people are full-time versus freelance, part-time, gig workers, and the income inequality, as I show you all the time. This is Trump's economy. This is Obama's economy. This was George W.'s economy. This was Bubba Clinton's economy. Papa Bush, Reagan. That is the booming economy they all talked about in their times. That's the real economy. The robbery of our wealth to the Donald Trump and Joe Bidens of the world. That's the reality, folks. Thank you for the super chat. Cryptician, $10. Trump is like his ignorant supporters in complete hostile denial to reality, and they cover their ignorance up by self-programming themselves into concocting and spewing nonsensical fantasies. Correct. But part of the problem, and thank you for the super chat, is the media never actually does any intelligent pushback. I don't think I've ever seen one interview where the media does not let Trump just boycott and audible and filibuster. When Trump speaks over the journalist actually speaks over them. I said it when I was at the Young Turks, but if I'm Jake Tapper in 2016 interviewing Donald Trump and he's playing dumb, I don't know who David Duke is. You know what I'd do? To hell with it if I get fired. I'm ending the interview. Because you're either a moron running for president to not know who David Duke is, or you're straight up lying. And he was lying, because if Jake Tapper did his research, Donald Trump mentioned David Duke by name in the year 2000 when Donald Trump was teasing about possibly running for president under the reform ticket. So none of these journalists ever actually push back because they understand Trump is their gravy train. Trump has raked in the profits for ABC, for NBC, You remember former CBS chairman Les Moonves? He said, you know, Trump's terrible for America, but he's great for CBS. I mean, it just came out recently. CNN president Jeff Zucker was caught on tape talking to Michael Cohen, basically giving them campaign advice in 2016 and saying, oh yeah, if it doesn't work out, I'd love to give Donald Trump a weekly show here on CNN. This is the president of CNN during the 2016 election when Trump was running, when he was taking a time out from giving Trump $3 billion in free airtime. To then saying, oh yeah, if it doesn't work out, let's talk shop here. How much you want for a weekly show? This isn't news. It's propaganda. So let's go to the next clip and keep pressing that like button right there. By the way, I want to make an announcement. I forgot to make this announcement. Just a real quick pivot. Excuse me, it's going to get dark for a second because I didn't put this in. But tomorrow, we will be interviewing Green Party candidate Howie Hawkins. And I thought about this because I knew if I interviewed Howie Hawkins, I would be criticized. Jordan, this is not the time. This is not the time. We need to focus exclusively on getting Trump out of there. You cannot distract. You cannot give the Green Party a platform. I understood that argument from pure partisans, but as revelations have come out at the Democratic Party essentially trying to purge the Green Party from the presidential ballots in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, and elsewhere, you know what? Sorry, that's not democracy, that's not right, and we are going to cover that with Howie Hawkins. Doesn't mean I'm telling you to vote for Howie Hawkins. As I always say, you vote for whoever you want. Whether it's Biden, Trump, I'm not advocating one way or the other. I understand people who decide they got to hold their nose and vote for Biden because Trump is so bad. I get people that think it's, you know, I just can't do it again, this lesser of two evils. But and this is, by the way, if you remember when I was covering the Movement for the People's Party convention, I said, listen, I'm not against a new party, but we got to put down the pom-poms for a second and talk about reality. Look at what they're doing to the Green Party. Look at what they're doing to the Working Families Party in New York. The Democratic Party, and in some cases the Republican Party, are literally trying to purge these parties off the ballot so they cannot even have a shot. That doesn't mean, you know, I'm not for every Green Party candidate or against every Green Party candidate. But if we're going to say we live in a democracy, if Howie Hawkins and the Green Party have done everything on that checklist to get on the ballots, they've gotten the signatures, and they've met the other requirements, they should be on the ballot. And I don't really care if people don't like me giving him airtime or giving him a platform. It ain't right. And you can't call this a democracy if you are intentionally excluding Americans' choice. And that is how the two-party duopoly continues. So we will have Howie Hawkins on tomorrow to cover what the fuckery, and Crystal Ball covered this on the Rising show. The pure fuckery, excuse my French, demonetized, swear jar in the super chat, GoFundMe, thank you very much. We will be covering that with Howie Hawkins. So, keep it coming. And thank you. We got a couple more GoFundMe donations. Thank you, Kelly Elaine, $5. Thank you, Anonymous, $5. We're now $420 away, $420. Put it in your pipe, smoke that. $420 away from hitting that $120,000 raise. So, let's move on to another clip. Now, we're going to move off of Trump soon, but I'm sorry, I have to cover this. I mean, I don't do that much Trump, but this town hall was really something.
And we've made a lot of governors look very good, and now some are in a shutdown and some aren't. We'd like to see it open up and open up as soon as possible. But we're very proud of the job we've done, and we've saved a lot of lives, a tremendous number of lives.
Mr. President, you mentioned a number of things. So let's talk about the mortality first, because you said we're doing better in mortality than other countries. But here's this chart right here. It shows the United States is right here. This is number of deaths per million residents. Here's Western Europe here, Canada, way down there. We're not at the top of the list.
The excess mortality rate is among the best in the whole world, George. I mean, I can show you. There's a chart that just came out a little while ago. Excess mortality rate is compared to Europe, compared to other places, it's about 25% better. In one case, it's over 60% better. And we also have a very big country. You know, we're talking about a lot bigger than most countries. When you look at testing, just as an example, when India does 40 million less tests than us, they have 1.5 billion people. China, you don't get the accurate numbers out of China, but China, they lost a lot of people. They just don't say what they lost.
We have 4% of the world's population, more than 20% of the cases, more than 20% of the deaths.
Well, we have 20% of the cases because of the fact that we do much more testing. If we wouldn't do testing, you wouldn't have cases. You would have very few cases.
As you know, Dr. Fauci says that's not true. These are actual cases.
Well, Dr. Fauci said we've done a fantastic job. He just said it yesterday, actually. He said we've done a fantastic job, that we didn't mislead anybody. Now, I'm not going to make people feel like I want to look. We're the leader of a great country. We want to keep it that way. I don't want to scare people. I don't want to make people panic. And you're not going to go out and say, oh, this is death, death, death. You have to run a country. We're in a country. We got hit by something very unfairly. What I noticed were yesterday, Dr. Fauci said that
Am I in the Twilight Zone? Am I in the Twilight Zone here? First of all, and thank you, Windy Melly, $20 in the super chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Suffragem, $5. Swear jar, carajo. Appreciate it. Why can't I see Windy Melly's super chat? Hold on. 222. Huh. I can't see it. Let's see. Windy Melly, where are you? 222. Jen, if you could send me what she wrote, because I don't see it. So, here's an obvious point, and maybe George Stephanopoulos, if he gets another try at the bat. You say you don't want to panic people. Before the midterm elections in 2018, you were screaming, ranting, and raving that the caravans are coming to get you. The immigrant caravans are coming. Lock your children. Lock your daughter. Bolt the doors. The caravans are coming. You've been screaming and ranting for weeks about Antifa. Panic. You've been screaming and ranting about Joe Biden is gonna, you're gonna have to lock your door if Joe Biden becomes president. And you don't like to panic people? Like, these are basic, obvious things that no journalist points out. This man is a walking panic meter. He is a walking bullshit artist. Yet, George Stephanopoulos doesn't push back on him. The other thing is, he's mastered this talking point, and nobody really pushes back. Mr. President, what are you talking about? We have more cases because we test more? What does that mean? So, we test more, which isn't even that true, but putting that aside, okay, but we're not testing everybody, so the fact is, there are whether these cases are because we're testing more or not, we have more cases. So there are also plenty of other cases that are not popping up because majority of people are not tested. So what does this talking point even mean? And the bottom line is, whether it's through testing or not testing, why do we have all these cases? Does it have anything to do with the fact that in March and April, you did not do a national lockdown, which Italy did, which France did, Israel did, other European and Middle Eastern countries did? They didn't have different states doing different things, and this state did this, and this state did this. They all, the nation locked down. Is that why we have so many cases? Because you allowed this makeshift system where different states were going to do different things, and now you talk about Democratic-run cities versus Republicans? It's all bonkers. Why are there so many cases showing up? If it's because of testing, so be it. Why are so many people testing positive? Because without a vaccine, during your words, deadly airborne illness, that was on the Bob Woodward's tapes, you called it a deadly airborne illness, you did nothing. You didn't shut down the country. Yeah. You allowed for different states to do different things. It was in your purview. It's within your legal right during a pandemic, a national health emergency, to say, for X amount of time, can't leave your house. Only people that could leave the house are essential workers, food delivery, nurses, that kind of thing. Period. If you do so, you're getting arrested. Civil libertarians, come at me. I don't really care. You're right, Hizzle. He meant Wall Street panic. Windy Bailey, $20. Can political leaders stop talking about the unemployment rate as if that's the only indicator for how Americans are doing financially? You could be employed and still not be paid enough to make ends meet. Preach! Windy Bailey, I mean, exactly. And frankly, it ain't just Trump. Obama cited the unemployment rate time and time again. I think that's why Obama was shocked when Hillary Clinton lost, because Obama thought, I saved the economy I avoided a global depression. The economy is doing wonderful. They're all crazy out of touch because they all are wealthy with spoons up their ass. Thank you, Windy Melly. Thank you, To Be Real. $10 in the super chat with the cool sticker. Appreciate it. By the way, if you're coming to this late, I mean, as humbly as I could say it, it happens to be my birthday Sunday. So feel free to leave me an early birthday present. It's for the company, not personally. Sup for Jim. There's a new line of makeup for men. Color me orange. I like that. That's hilarious. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep those super chats coming. Keep the GoFundMe. For those coming late, reminder, we now have Status Coup hats. So definitely head to the store. Get your Status Coup hat. We got the regular ones, the flat brim. We really want you to be rocking. And of course, it's not just hats. You could get the Status Coup hoodie. By the way, by popular demand of just Jen and me, and Anat, we now have Status Coup dog hoodies. I mean, is there anything better in life? Get your Status Coup dog hoodie. I gotta see if one will fit my parents' dog, Rusty. That would be amazing. Anyway, I digress. So, last one here.
From Glenshaw, Pennsylvania, registered nurse who's always voted Republican for president. Laura, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. President. Martin Luther King Jr. once famously wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." In the light of the ongoing protests surrounding the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the recent shooting of Jacob Blake, do you feel racial injustices are occurring in this nation? And if so, what can be done to address them?
Well, I think they were tragic events, and I do feel that we have to also take into consideration that if you look at our police, they do a phenomenal job. You'll have people choke, make mistakes, and they happen. It happens where they have to make a fast decision, and some bad things happen. And you also have bad apples, but you have 99% great people. I know the police forces very well. I think almost every one of them, if you look, I've been endorsed by so many of them. And these are great people. And I will say this, if you're going to stop crime, we have to give the respect back to the police that they deserve. They've done a fantastic job in so many locations, but then...
So, first of all, if you don't know, this happened, I think I wasn't live yesterday because Jason was live, but there's a $12 million settlement in the Breonna Taylor murder, so Breonna Taylor's family will be getting $12 million. There was some police reform measures, part of that. I looked at them Most of them seem like artificial BS to me, but, you know, I'm not going to say $12 million is enough. Breonna Taylor is dead. Her family's never going to, it's never going to be enough. But I am happy that they're getting that money. Unfortunately, I worry that this settlement with the $12 million is an appetizer to an announcement that no charges will be brought against the police that murdered her. But that remains to be seen. So if that were me, a journalist, I would turn around and say to President Trump, before you became president, what did you do for 30 years? Say I was a builder, I was a real estate developer, television personality. Said, okay, President Trump, let me ask you a question. If over the last decade, every year, multiple times a year, there were incidences of heavily armed black men murdering real estate executives, actors, and businessmen all over the country, typically wealthy, real estate executives, actors, and businessmen. Would you say these are a few bad apples, the black shooters? Or would you say we have a systemic problem of violence among these black people, shooting and killing real estate executives, actors, or what have you? Because when you say bad apples, a couple bad apples, whether there's a couple bad apples or not, the bad apples are permanently removing black people from this earth. So would you be saying the same thing if you said, I was a real estate executive, I was a builder, I was a TV personality, you know, The Apprentice. If the roles were reversed and armed black people were choking, in your words, and shooting up all of these people, would you be saying the same thing? Because I don't think Breonna Taylor's family thinks it's a few bad apples. I don't think Trayvon Martin's family thinks it's a few bad apples. I don't think Jacob Blake's parents think it's a few bad apples. And by what you're saying and your tone, you know, it seems like here we have two things, because two things could be true, right, Mr. President? You could have good police. You could say, you know, the government community should support their police. At the same time, we have a problem with systemic racism and irrational behavior and, frankly, corruption, which I've shown you through recent interviews, in police departments. Why are you so afraid to say that? Does it have anything to do with the donations you get from very, very influential police unions all over the country? That have anything to do with it? I mean, these are easy, basic questions. I'm sure Trump would filibuster, blah, 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 but nothing. There's no pushback. It was a good question. I'm glad that woman asked it. And of course, you know, Trump pivoted to nonsense. So that is the Cliff Notes of his town hall last night. I will say, just like in 2016, if you had a half authentic, even a quarter authentic Democratic nominee with even one bold policy or bold vision, even if it was fake, and that was the person you were running against, not only would you beat them in the popular vote, probably by 5 million votes, you would clobber them in the Electoral College, because Trump can be beaten. He could easily be beaten. He is a bullshit artist. He is the creme de la creme of bullshit artists. Probably one of the best bullshit artists on planet Earth. The fact that even in these battleground states, you look at these polls in Minneapolis right now, Minnesota, which Hillary Clinton won in 2016. It's pretty close in Minnesota right now. You look in New Hampshire. Hillary Clinton won New Hampshire in 2016 by less than 1 percentage point. It's very close right now in New Hampshire. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Wisconsin and Pennsylvania right now, they look good for Biden, but it could quickly change. He's not up by 15 points. He's up in most of these places by 4 to 8 points. And that could quickly change if he has a disastrous debate talking about Biden, which it's very possible he's going to have a disastrous debate. He ain't going to have a teleprompter up there. God knows what his people are injecting him with before that debate. I'm half kidding. But the fact that it's even close, when you have somebody who has presided over, we're about to hit 200,000 deaths. It's not all his fault, but it is a lot his fault. Can you imagine if Barack Obama was president and 200,000 people died during a pandemic? Do you think the Republican Party would give him the benefit of the doubt? Give the Democratic Party the benefit of the doubt? Are you kidding? Moving on. I want to play, before I get to the next topic, I just want to play, if you missed this, because frankly, if you haven't seen, YouTube has been just insanely suppressing us this week. Our views are far down. So you might not have even seen that we published this. But yesterday, we had a live, Jason was live for us. I just want to play this clip of this woman who claims to be undecided, doesn't know who she's going to vote for. Let me just play it, and I'll give my thoughts after.
But we can't get to the Trump supporters because there's a line of police.
I'm undecided. I'm a registered Democrat, but I have a massive issue with mandated vaccines and mandated masks, which seem to, for some reason, be on my party. And I was hoping to come out here today to talk to Donald Trump and ask him what he's going to do about that.
Okay, so you are it's actually great to talk to someone who's an undecided voter because what's it called? The town hall today. The town hall today is all the people in the audience are undecided voters asking the president's questions. If you were an undecided voter in there, what question would you ask the president?
Yeah, I mean, my question is pretty long, but as an undecided voter, I'm really, and a registered Democrat, I'm really concerned with what Biden says, which is basically he is advocating mandated masks to everyone, meaning this little guy, everyone, probably over the age of 2. Mandated to me means fines and, oops, my son fell, fines and possibly jail like they're doing in Australia.
Why shouldn't people wear masks?
For a minimum, outside, for a minimum of 3 months. And there is no scientific basis for that. He also said that would save 40,000 lives. That makes absolutely no sense. We are not transmitting it outside in unconfined spaces. So by the media, especially the mainstream media, and I used to work for CNN.
You were in what capacity?
I was a booker, which is a big, editorial position. So I was booking people that were on air. And I have a real problem with both what CNN and Fox, the whole narrative is bought by the pharmaceuticals and Bill Gates. And I would say that's what appears to be dictating our government right now. And why isn't the government, who's also paid off the congressmen and the women, why aren't they standing up to what Bill Gates and Fauci are saying? They're heavily invested in pharmaceuticals, and what they're saying makes no scientific basis. It's not.
What?
Oh boy. And if you didn't see the full interview, definitely, here's the link. We'll put it in the super chat. Give it a view, give it a like, comment, all that stuff. So, what is truly, I try not to white-splain, so I'm going to try also not to parent-splain. I don't have any children yet, so I don't want to be the person, telling a parent, you're a bad parent, but that's a bad parent. First of all, and, I can't verify it, I don't know her name, but I will give, I'll just give her the benefit of the doubt if she worked at CNN. Are you the particle police? Do you have clairvoyant powers, ma'am? That you have the ability to see whether particles are spreading outside? You say, I study this? Are you a scientist? I don't, you know me, I don't just lazily believe whatever the government tells me, but I do tend to follow scientists that I know they're funding, or there's no gross conflict of interest here. What in the world are you talking about? That it can't spread outside. Of course, it is less likely to spread outside. I had coronavirus. Frankly, I think I got it either on my walk to a supermarket or inside the supermarket. But you know with such certainty that you're willing, in real time, you're not wearing a mask. You're willing, because you are that certain, to acquire coronavirus and transmit it to your kids who are right next to you also not wearing masks. Yes, I know there's evidence that it's less likely for children to pick it up the younger you are. But what makes you God or have clairvoyant power because you research online? Where are you researching? Breitbart.com? I mean, I'm not going to play the whole clip, but it wasn't just that she's an anti-masker. She's also, it seems, an anti-vaxxer. So the government tyranny of making you wear a mask, they're not making you wear handcuffs, making you put cloth over your face when you're outdoors, is such tyranny that is, in your mind, the priority over keeping your children safe. And this is what I don't get with these anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers. And I get it because, the tribalism of our politics. People who watch Fox and listen to Trump automatically think this. People who watch Rachel Maddow and are Democrats automatically think this. We're living in a tribal mind. That's why I'm just consistent. Somebody said to me, Jordan, you shouldn't interview Howie Hawkins tomorrow. You're elevating Trump. I said, no, I'm not a seasonal journalist. I can't just, close up shop and not do what I would always do for 3 months to try and help Joe Biden get elected. That's not how I operate. If you want to criticize me, that's fine, but I'm going to be consistent. But it makes no sense to me how a woman or a man with zero scientific expertise, you might be a smart person. That doesn't mean you're smart on this. I'm generally a smart person. You know what I'm not that smart on? Vaccines and science. I think the sign of a smart person, and even more a leader, is to know to know where your strengths are and know what you don't know. So this woman, by her either grandiose vision of her intelligence, is endangering her children. She's lucky she hasn't gotten coronavirus yet. And I am telling you right now, if you are at an outdoor event with a lot of people not wearing masks, if you are at an outdoor sporting event with a lot of people not wearing masks, even if you're at these events where most people are wearing masks, there's going to be a percentage of transmission. That's just a fact. Does she think all across the globe that the virus only spread indoors, that there was no transmission outdoors? Oh my God, Jason did a good job, but if I was interviewing her, forget about it. No, that's not what she said, Fly Chomperly. Sorry, she is right about not being as susceptible outside. That's not what she said. If she would have said you're not as susceptible to it outside, we wouldn't be talking about this. She said, as a matter of fact, that it cannot be transmitted. I'm not going to play it again. She said it cannot be transmitted outside. So I would rewatch the tape. If she would have said it's far less transmissible outside, that would be one thing. That doesn't mean you shouldn't wear a mask, because it's far less, it's like saying, at 2 a.m., I'm far less, if I'm jaywalking and running across the street where I'm not allowed to run, I'm far less likely to get hit by a car and die at 2 a.m. than I am during rush hour traffic. Okay, but you still shouldn't at 2 a.m. in the morning be running across the street when you don't have, the sign to go. A car can still come out of nowhere and hit you. So it's this notion of, you might be less susceptible, but that doesn't mean there is no chance you could contract this outside. That's what she's saying. Let me move on to a later part in this.
Now, I'm wanting to ask Donald Trump that question because I also don't like warp speed vaccine. That to me sounds really scary, and that's his idea.
Not to be fair, she said she was an undecided voter.
How are you not decided after seeing a fascist place black people, women, Hispanics, or putting people in cages, lying to your face? 200,000 people dead, and you undecided.
She says she doesn't like the masks.
It's not just about masks. It's about mandatory vaccines. There are so many topics to vote on today. There are so many topics, and I am voting on coronavirus. To me, that is the most important thing to my physical health.
In 1918, Philadelphia endured its worst pandemic ever, the Spanish flu. Do you know what the people in St. Louis did that the people in Philly didn't? They wore masks and they stayed the home. It's happened before, and if we wear masks, we can get rid of this shit. America's the only country that's still struggling this hard. Yes, the it is. Who else is struggling this hard? You just living in your little white privileged white lady world. You're never going to see things the way I do. All I did was
Football game, sir.
Fuck you, dickhead. Fuck you, dickhead. What you say?
You said masks work. Why can't we go to a football game or a baseball game?
I want to entertain you. Is he eat a gay? You're thin blue line. You probably got a thin white dick too.
All right, these guys are just yelling.
Oh boy. Jason was like, whoa, I got 3 people coming. You gotta love these Blue Lives Matter white guys. 200,000 people dead? God damn it, I can't go to a football game. I don't really care if there's trolls. I don't really care if there's anti-vaxxers or anti-maskers in the chat telling me why I'm wrong. I had coronavirus, okay? It wasn't pretty. I know other people that had coronavirus. This woman, and anyone who says otherwise, has no expertise to declare this cannot be transmitted outside. You want to talk about Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci and them being indebted to Big Pharma? Hey, that might be true. But that's a secondary issue. I have done the research, and I've also lived it to tell you she has no expertise, conclusive evidence, or conclusive way to know that you can't get it outside, yet she's standing there without a mask in front around hundreds of people. There were hundreds of people at that protest with her 2 kids right next to her. Through her misguided bullshit, big don't tread on me. She claims to be a Democrat and a former CNN producer. I find that suspect. She's willing to risk herself and her kids. And you are funding this journalism. I got to pay Jason. I got to pay John, the cameraman. We're paying Tina, another freelance journalist. We're talking to other freelancers to try and have them cover more things. So please, if you got anything, contribute. Membership is kind of slow right now. Obviously, membership is our model, statuscoup.com/join. Because of the coronavirus, we've lost a lot of members. So we're pushing our GoFundMe right now because right now it's been a little tricky to grow our membership. So definitely, if you can, we want to cover a lot more, not just Trump stuff, all the other stuff you know us for. So any amount, the minimum's $5 on GoFundMe. We really appreciate it. Now, I want to segue to a really, really important story. There are reports and allegations from women in ICE camps that they have experienced forced hysterectomies, the removal, the full or partial removals of their uterus. It's hard for me to even say that because it just seems like even in America, which is a racist, anti-immigrant, just in many ways a horrible capitalist corporation masquerading as a country, you wouldn't think we're at the level of forcing women into horrendous hysterectomies and sterilization, but that is currently the reports. Here's Jen.
As a journalist, I often have to keep emotions out of my reporting. If I allowed my emotions to get the best of me, it would be impossible to hold it together. I would completely fall apart based on the horrific stories we report day after day. Journalists have to immerse ourselves in these stories. We have to keep going because there are so many atrocities in the United States and across the world. Occasionally, and I would say often actually, in 2020 especially, there are certain stories where that's impossible. This is one of those stories. I do not have the words to adequately describe how horrific this story is. The headline here reads, "Like an experimental concentration camp, whistleblower complaint alleges mass hysterectomies at ICE detention center." So obviously you know about the calls to defund ICE, you know about the calls to stop the horrific practice of keeping kids in cages, of separating families, of the horrible conditions that ICE detainees have to deal with, like sleeping, like food, the lack of food, like medicine, the lack of medicine, the lack of attention and care. There are so many horrible things going on at these ICE camps. Well, we have recently learned through a whistleblower of, I would say, even worse atrocities going on. Forced hysterectomies, eugenics. Our country has a long and sordid history of this, which I will go over. But first I want to give you the details of this story in particular. I also want to make it clear that I'm going to stay on this story. Thank God a whistleblower has come forward on what is truly going on. Of course, ICE is now pushing back, but we have to look at the history. We have to look at the truths of the whistleblower and of the women, these ICE detainees who have gone through this. This first part that I'm going to dive into comes from the actual OIG report that was submitted. And this was posted by Law and Crime, and you can find it by searching for OIG complaint uploaded by Law and Crime on September 14th, 2020. So this is about the Irwin County Detention Center in Georgia. You can see who all the people that this was submitted to. And it's regarding lack of medical care, unsafe work practices, and absence of adequate protection against COVID-19 for detained immigrants and employees alike at the Irwin County Detention Center. So of course, even based on this whistleblower complaint, there are a lot of things that we could get into related to the horrible conditions surrounding COVID-19 and these ICE detainees. For this particular video, I'm going to focus on the forced hysterectomies and the eugenics that are going on. So this is how the portion about the hysterectomies starts in this OIG report. Detained immigrants and ICDC nurses report high rates of hysterectomies done to immigrant women. Several immigrant women have reported to Project South, Project South is who these complaints came to and who is kind of coordinating this. Their concerns about how many women have received a hysterectomy while detained at ICDC. One woman told Project South in 2019 that Irwin sends many women to see a particular gynecologist outside the facility, but that some women did not trust him. She also stated that a lot of women here go through a hysterectomy at ICDC. More recently, a detained immigrant told Project South that she talked to 5 different women detained at ICDC between October and December 2019 who had a hysterectomy done. When she talked to them about the surgery, the women reacted confused when explaining why they had one done. The woman told Project South that it was as though the women were trying to tell themselves it's going to be okay. She further said, "When I met all these women who had had surgeries, I thought this was like an experimental concentration camp. It was like they're experimenting with our bodies." Ms. Wooten, who is the whistleblower, the nurse, also expressed concern regarding the high numbers of detained immigrant women at ICDC receiving hysterectomies. She stated that while some women have heavy menstruation or other severe issues that would require hysterectomy, everybody's uterus cannot be that bad, Ms. Wooten explained. Everybody he sees has a hysterectomy, just about everybody. He's even taken out the wrong ovary on a young lady, detained immigrant woman. She was supposed to get her left ovary removed because it had a cyst on the left ovary. He took out the right one. She was upset. She had to go back to take out the left, and she wound up with a total hysterectomy. She still wanted children. So she has to go back home now and tell her husband that she can't bear kids. She said she was not all the way out under anesthesia and heard him, the doctor, tell the nurse that he took the wrong ovary. Ms. Wooten also stated that detained women expressed to her that they didn't fully understand why they had to get a hysterectomy. She said, "I've had several inmates tell me that they've been to see the doctor and they've had hysterectomies, and they don't know why they went or why they're going. And if the immigrants do understand what they're getting done, some of them a lot of times won't even go. They say they'll wait to get back to their country to go to the doctor." The rate at which the hysterectomies have occurred have been a red flag for Ms. Wooten and other nurses at ICDC. Ms. Wooten explained, "We've questioned among ourselves, like, goodness, he's taking everybody's stuff out. That's his specialty. He's the uterus collector. I know that's ugly. Is he collecting these things or something? Everybody he sees, he's taking all their uteruses out or he's taking their tubes out. What in the world?" Intertwined with the issue of the reported high rates of hysterectomies is the issue of proper informed consent. Regarding the hysterectomies, Ms. Wooten explained, "These immigrant women, I don't think they really totally all the way understand this is what's going to happen depending on who explains it to them." Ms. Wooten stated that the sick call nurse tries to communicate with the detained immigrants and speak Spanish to detained immigrants by simply Googling Spanish, or by asking another detained immigrant to help interpret, rather than using the language line as medical staff are supposed to. One detained immigrant reported to Project South that staff at ICDC and the doctor's office did not properly explain to her what procedure she was going to have done. She reported feeling scared and frustrated, saying it felt like they were trying to mess with my body. When she asked what was being done to her body, she was given 3 different responses by 3 different individuals. She was originally told by the doctor that she had an ovarian cyst and was going to have a small 20-minute procedure done, drilling 3 small holes in her stomach to drain the cyst. The officer who was transporting her to the hospital told her that she was receiving a hysterectomy to have her womb removed. When the hospital refused to operate on her because her COVID-19 test came back positive for antibodies, she was transferred back to ICDC, where the ICDC nurse said that the procedure she was going to have done entailed dilating her vagina and scraping tissue off. The nurse first told the detained immigrant she was going to get this procedure done because she had heavy bleeding, but then told her it was because she had a thick womb. The woman quickly responded that she never had heavy bleeding in her life, and was never told by the doctor that she had a thick womb. Instead, she stated that the doctor had described an entirely different procedure that did not involve scraping her vagina. She stated, "I tried to explain to her that something isn't right. That procedure isn't for me." The nurse responded by getting angry and agitated and began yelling at her. She told Project South that seeing the nurse's nervous and angry response confirmed that something was not right. I highly recommend reading this entire OIG report. That is just one piece of I'll keep using the word atrocities. That is just one piece of the atrocities that are alleged to be to have been committed and are ongoing, allegedly again, by this whistleblower. You know, she has come out saying that these things are being done according to things she has seen and according to testimony of immigrant women who are being held by ICE. You know, this is part of the reason why so many activists and progressives call for abolishing ICE. One of many reasons. So I'm not going to go through the entire law and crime piece because it is basically going over what I just went over. It is, you know, editorializing the OIG complaint that I just went over. I think it goes to show you that women do need to be heard. Women do need to be listened to. And I point this out in particular because of the way that ICE is now pushing back. At first they wouldn't comment, but now they have commented. And they're trying to say that this is not happening. Here is what Law and Crime was able to get out of them. So this came on September 15th as an update. Medical Director of the ICE Health Service Corps, Dr. Ada Rivera, said in a statement obtained by Law and Crime that ICE vehemently disputes the implication that detainees are used for experimental medical procedures. They go on to say, ICE's mission is to protect the homeland and to swiftly and quickly remove people from the country. The health, welfare, and safety of ICE detainees is one of the agency's highest priorities. Any assertion or claim to the contrary is false and intentionally misleading, the statement said. Rivera continues saying that since 2018, only 2 individuals at Irwin County Detention Center were referred to certified credential medical professionals at gynecological and obstetrical health facilities for hysterectomies in compliance with National Commission or Correctional Health Care Standards. They go on to deny this, but to them I say, why put out this statement? Why not actually look into this if you're actually concerned? And I think the answer to that is they're not concerned. All they're concerned with at ICE is trying to cover this up, of trying to tell, you know, Congress, don't look into this, look away, of trying to diminish, yet again, the voices of these detained women who are being forced or tricked into having hysterectomies. You can't tell me that those women that have spoken out are all lying about this. You can't tell me that the whistleblower, Wooten, has come forward risking her future career prospects based on a lie. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is that ICE is corrupt. ICE is committing eugenics, which, once again, this country has a long and storied history of. So let's dive into some of the historical precedents in this country. This is out of The Cut. Reports of ICE's forced hysterectomies are nothing new in America. This came out on September 15th by Angelina Chapin. So some specific parts of this history that I've pulled out are as follows, and you know, this might make you feel as nauseous as I do. It's not an easy thing realizing that this is our history, of seeing all the historical precedent laid out all at once and knowing that it is still going on today. This isn't just something in the past. This isn't just something we can brush aside. This is still happening. So part of this history, as detailed by The Cut, from the early 20th century to the 1970s, up to 70,000 Americans, most of them women, were forcibly sterilized. Again, this is what is happening at the ICE detention center in Georgia. And it wouldn't surprise me if it were being done in other detention centers, in other ICE detention centers as well. They were deemed unfit to procreate because of eugenics, the concept that certain people are tainted by undesirable traits that should be bred out of future generations. Undesirable, of course, was a euphemism for immigrants and anyone non-white, poor, mentally ill, or who had disabilities. In some cases, it included women who were promiscuous. The belief that only white, privileged offspring were welcome in America led to federally funded sterilization programs in 32 states, and a landmark Supreme Court case from 1927 reaffirmed the idea that governments should control who gets to have kids. It goes on. Some states had even created eugenics boards with committee members who would read petitions from government agencies or family members and order sterilizations. North Carolina's board was one of the most aggressive. The state performed surgeries on more than 7,600 people between the 1930s and 1970s, 65% of whom were black women. The racism in this cannot be denied. American politicians only distanced themselves from eugenics after the term was embraced by the Nazis. Hitler cited U.S. law as inspiration, but forced sterilizations continued with a rebranded logic. Folks, we live in a sick, sick society. During the same time that Roe v. Wade granted mostly white women more bodily autonomy in the 1970s, up to 50% of Native American women were forcibly sterilized by the U.S. government. Doctors from the Indian Health Service didn't believe these women were intelligent enough to use birth control, and doctors coerced them into signing consent forms or gave them misleading information. That is exactly what is alleged to be happening at this ICE detention center. Many drank themselves to death when they found out they had been sterilized. A high-profile case from the 1970s focused on two sisters from Alabama, 12 and 14, who were secretly sterilized by a federally funded clinic. Their mother, who was illiterate, had signed a form that she thought gave her daughters permission to get birth control. Hospitals in the South let medical students practice unnecessary hysterectomies on black women, in what became known as Mississippi appendectomies, and a third of those sterilizations were done on girls under 18. The ultimate goal of eugenics is to keep immigrants out of the U.S. and to curb their ability to procreate within the country. It's no surprise that the worst offending state for forced sterilizations was California, a place with a large Latinx and Asian population, where roughly 20,000 people had operations that left them barren between 1909 and 1964. Over the next 10 years, hundreds of Mexican American women were sterilized under duress while giving birth at a county hospital in Los Angeles. In the documentary, I don't know how to pronounce this, excuse me. So in that documentary, the women say that nurses and doctors threatened to withhold painkillers or emergency cesarean sections, telling them your baby could probably die if they didn't sign consent forms. They scrawled signatures in moments of confusion and desperation, only realizing after the fact that their reproductive rights were now gone. Between the 1930s and 1970s, roughly a third of Puerto Rico's population was sterilized, the highest rate in the world. And the procedure became so common that doctors referred to it simply as la operación. While most instances of forced sterilizations are now illegal, a Supreme Court ruling in the late 1970s said doctors had to fully inform patients of their rights and could not ask for consent during childbirth. The practice continues. It's most common for people who are incarcerated or detained, like the women who say they were coerced into hysterectomies while in ICE custody. Between 1997 and 2010, I'll read that again, between 1997 and 2010, 1,400 women in California prisons were given unwanted sterilizations. One doctor said it would save welfare money going towards unwanted children, even though the forced surgeries were officially banned in the state in 1979. And as recently as 2017, a Tennessee judge told repeat offenders that he would cut down their jail time if they volunteered to have surgeries or contraceptive implants that would stop them from procreating. I honestly do not have the words. I have the anger, and that's why I said I'm going to stay on this. I'm going to see if, as much as I can, if this is happening elsewhere, what is truly going on at this ICE facility in Georgia. Members of Congress like Pramila Jayapal, Ayanna Pressley are coming forward about this, but this should be headline news everywhere. Instead of that, relatively few outlets have reported on this in the mainstream media. And when they do, it's buried. It's not on the front page, or it's not above the fold, as we say. Why is this story not at the very, very top of everyone's radar? This is happening in America. Something that inspired Hitler has continued here in America in the year 2020. All because of racism, xenophobia. So I'm going to stay on this. I am completely disgusted and horrified, and I hope that maybe you can help spread the word about what's going on, because everybody needs to know about this. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel to hear our continued reporting. Please consider becoming a member of Status Coup to help us on our mission to do as much in-field reporting and investigative reporting as possible. We need to be on stories like this, and you joining as a member for as low as $5 a month helps make that happen. Go to statuscoup.com/join.
Oh, I didn't know the majority of that, so it was extremely heart-wrenching and informative. Yeah, judging by what we've already seen ICE do under President Trump, I fully believe the whistleblowers, and this is truly horrific and disgraceful in any country, much less America. So happy that Jen is on it, and I know that she will stay on it, so we will have follow-ups on this really, really disgusting story. No real good way to segue, but my final story for tonight, and keep it coming in the Super Chat. We really appreciate it, and thank you for the GoFundMe donations, Denise and Stephen. Thank you so much. $50 from Stephen, Denise $10, so we're getting close. That's 300 and what is that? $360 away. $360 away from $120,000 raised. So please keep it coming if you want to fund this important journalism. Definitely not as serious of a story, but there was a piece in BuzzFeed, a pretty good piece, I would say, about Bernie Sanders. I'm putting it right there in the Super Chat if you want to read it. And it goes through, basically a little bit of the campaign, but more so Bernie in the Biden nominee era. Obviously there's been a lot of criticism of Bernie Sanders on the left, some fair, a lot unfair in my view. So this part stood out to me. Here's from BuzzFeed. For some of his supporters, this posture is unfamiliar and insufficient. Let me read a little earlier. In one interview after the next, Sanders has said the fight will resume as soon as the election ends. Quote, the day after Biden is elected, we're going to have a serious debate about the future of this country, he said. We will fight about our ideas. We'll fight about healthcare and education and climate change after Biden is elected, he said. Biden, he said, has the potential to be the most progressive president since FDR. For some of his supporters, this posture is unfamiliar and insufficient. By the time Sanders made his pitch for Biden's agenda at the convention last month, including, to the dismay of some, his more modest public option health care plan, about 850 of his own delegates, the supporters representing his campaign at the convention, had already pledged to vote against the Democratic platform. The official, if largely symbolic document outlining the party's stance on policy every 4 years did not endorse Medicare for all. Some of the most prominent voices attached to Sanders' movement proudly dissented, including his campaign's national co-chairs, former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner and Congressman Ro Khanna and Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, one of 4 progressive women of color in Congress who make up the squad. Quote, "It was a little disappointing but unsurprising," said Winnie Wong, a veteran of progressive politics who served as senior advisor on Sanders' 2020 campaign. There was no way he would go live and make mention of the fact that nearly his entire delegation is voting no on the platform. So, definitely, it's a long story. I'm not going to read any more, but I put it in the super chat if you want to read it. It has quotes from Jane Sanders and others. Thank you for the super chat. BH, $5. Happy birthday, Jordan, for Progressive Boomer and Status Coup member. Why, thank you. My birthday's in 4 days, but appreciate the early birthday wishes. And love my Progressive Boomers out there. There's something in here that, again, I understand for people holding their nose and voting for Joe Biden. I'm not shaming anybody. But I also have to say, as much as I like Bernie Sanders and respect Bernie Sanders, I also got to call BS where there's BS. Because this idea that, the day after Biden's elected, we're going to have a serious debate about the future of this country. We will fight about our ideas. We'll fight about health care and education and climate change after Biden is elected. I think Bernie genuinely believes, maybe because he has a decent relationship with Biden, I wish he would have tossed that relationship out of the way during the campaign. Joe Biden was not your friend. He's not a nice guy. Go ask the black people in jail because of Joe Biden. Go ask the parents who have lost their daughters and sons at war because of Joe Biden. Go ask the families that have suffered because of NAFTA that Joe Biden cheerleaded for. Not a nice guy to them. But this idea that, of course, Trump, you're not going to move Trump. But this idea that we just got to get Biden in there and right away we'll be protesting and in the streets and we'll force Biden to the table. This idea that that's legitimate. I'm not saying, hey, don't bother protesting. What's the point of being alive if you're not going to try? But this notion among Bernie and others that that's like a real thing, that Joe Biden is we're going to be able to influence Joe Biden. Frankly, that Joe Biden even is going to be the one making the decisions. You know the drill. We live in the United Corporations of America. The president isn't even the one making most decisions. It's the donors, the corporations that run the country. And we're already seeing it, by the way. I mean, I reported this. I didn't see anyone else report it. During his DNC speech, which, people were just cheerleading that he got through it, 24 minutes without a major breakdown, he didn't mention the public option. He ran on, expanding Obamacare with a public option. Well, there was no mention of the public option during his speech. All he talked about was fixing Obamacare. I pointed out, he's starting already to moonwalk, even from the public option, which, by the way, totally inadequate anyway. So now this comes out. Biden wants to restore Obamacare. He may have trouble doing it. Trump has steered the healthcare system right in ways that Biden could find hard to untangle, especially with an uncooperative Congress. I'm not going to read the whole story. It's in Politico, but it's now the second or third story that I've seen. And this is called pushing the narrative. This is called, in politics and media, the campaigns start to send a message out there, start to send signals out there so donors get it. Wall Street gets it. This is another story where they're basically lowering expectations. Democrats, Biden, people in Biden world, lowering expectations that they'll even be able to do a public option. Quote, Biden's campaign said it's already considering immediate steps to get more people covered during a pandemic that's expected to stretch into next year, even if by his inauguration there's an approved coronavirus vaccine that's just starting to reach people. Biden could take emergency action Trump has rejected, like broadly reopening Obamacare's insurance marketplaces to the uninsured and restoring funds for enrollment outreach that Trump gutted. Those measures would be relatively easy to push through. Kavita Patel, a Brookings Institution fellow who advised Kamala Harris's campaign, also suggested Biden may be able to use emergency powers, same powers Trump used for border wall construction, to temporarily fund more subsidies to make health insurance more affordable. However, cutting off a Trump-backed alternative to Obamacare health plans may be more difficult. Then they mentioned Medicaid, making Medicaid a little bit easier to get. There's nothing about the public option in this piece. Joe Biden, and by the way, these are quotes from people in Biden world, corporate Democrat think tanks. Again, this is called lowering expectations, setting the narrative, signaling. He doesn't mention a public option in his DNC speech. There's been 2 or 3 stories now on how difficult it's going to be for Joe Biden to get health care through. Republicans aren't going to play ball. He doesn't even have the votes among the Democrats. Oh, he might just have to, take small incremental wins. I've covered these new reports. Well, what happened to Joe Biden on the debate stage saying, first 100 days of my presidency, we're introducing a public option, which, by the way, isn't adequate. It's not enough, a public option. I've gone through the reasons a public option is no good. Maxwell, Jordan is always negative. No, Jordan is always keeping it real. Sorry, Maxwell. If you want feathery pom-poms, go elsewhere. Expanding Obamacare, fixing Obamacare, small ball things, is not meeting the moment, Maxwell. You got millions and millions and millions and millions of people without health care. You got tens of millions of more with health care that cannot actually use it because they can't afford it. And during a deadly pandemic, which, by the way, I reported, I think 2 days ago, even when we have a vaccine, it's not going to be widely, universally distributed right away. This is going to go probably into 2022. Mask wearing, social distancing, all this stuff. You're telling me they're already signaling, oh yeah, it's going to be tough to get a public option through? Doesn't that Republicans won't play ball? Well, I thought Joe Biden's whole calling card was bringing civility back to Washington, getting both sides to come back together, stop the tribal, battle royale politics. I thought Joe Biden was the guy that could get the good old days. Get the Republicans back to the table with the Democrats. Those good old days where they worked together to fuck you. Maxwell Vlogs. Jordan, we need to vote this white supremacist out of the White House, and voting for Joe is the only way. Hey, Maxwell. I don't know if you've been watching. I want you to look up in the dictionary. And yes, I'm intentionally being condescending. The word nuance. Okay? I'm not telling people who to vote for. People could vote for Donald Trump if they want. People could vote for Joe Biden. People could write in the ice cream truck man. It's not my job to tell you who to vote for. It's also not my job to boost up Joe Biden or boost up Donald Trump. I covered both of them today. They're both, to me, the wrong choices. I agree. Got to choose one. It's up to the viewers who they choose. But I'm not going to, take a pause on reporting the truth to my audience to get rid of the orange man. That's not how journalism works. That's activism. That's partisan activity. Temporarily quieting your criticisms or elevating based on reaching a political goal. That ain't my role. So if you don't like it, tough. You go elsewhere. So the point is not that we don't need to get rid of Trump. I do think we need to get rid of Trump. But what I think is the issue here is Bernie, either because he's a little naive, which I have enough sources in Bernie Sanders' universe to tell you he is naive. Part of it is a good-hearted optimism he possesses. I think he is deluding himself, and I've seen other progressives who are on Bernie's campaign and have been in Bernie's universe that have said the same thing. You know, right now I'm going to do whatever I got to do to elect Joe Biden. The next day I'm going to protest like hell. But I think when people tell you who they are, believe them. So this notion that you're going to protest your way to getting Joe Biden to the negotiation table, that you're going to protest your way to Joe Biden moving, Joe Biden is literally, and his people around him are literally trying to court John Kasich's of the world, Colin Powell's of the world, Michael Bloomberg's of the world. Joe Biden is literally surrounded, his whole campaign is surrounded by Lawrence Summers, who helped tank the economy and expand income inequality. He was a Wall Street vulture in Bill Clinton and Barack Obama's administration. Robert Rubin has been advising him, Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary, pushed the repeal of Glass-Steagall, pushed NAFTA. You think just getting, tens of thousands of people out to protest for Medicare for All is going to move Joe Biden when Joe Biden isn't the one making the decisions? It's his Wall Street donors. I'm not saying to do, I'm not talking about violence, but I think, we gotta open our eyes here. Protest is not going to get it done. We've been protesting. We've been protesting on climate change. We've been protesting on Black Lives, Medicare for All, you name it, against ICE. The only way the oligarchy changes, that the plutocrats come to the negotiating table, is not by screaming out loud, even though as an American, we should do that. It's our right as American citizens to protest. We cover them. It's when you hit them where it hurts. Look at the Washington football team. Used to be a very derogatory, offensive name to Native Americans. 10 years ago, the owner, Daniel Snyder, said, "It will be a cold day in hell when I change the name of the Washington football team." You know the name it used to be that I won't say. Oh, well, when organizing and campaigns got to the advertisers and the sponsors, FedEx is the sponsor of their stadium, and the advertisers and sponsors said, you gotta change your name. He did it like that. It's not that hard. You look at when labor unions were still strong in this country, early 20th century, the coal mining strikes, the Colorado coal mining strikes. It was bloody. They sent in the National Guard. The Ludlow massacre. Look it up. Eventually, labor won. So we got to stop, Bernie, I love you. Progressives, I love you. But protesting in the streets is not enough anymore. You got to start organizing, and you got to start focusing on the real power centers. It ain't the politicians, it's their donors. Start making Amazon uncomfortable. Start making Bank of America, Chase, Goldman Sachs uncomfortable. Walmart, the Walton family, Target, Instacart. You can go down the list. I got the flag. Viacom, Google, Coca-Cola, Visa, Verizon, McDonald's. You start you start affecting their bottom line, Joe Biden's not going to be making a choice whether to negotiate with you on Medicare for all or other things. His donors are going to be the ones telling him what to do. That's how power works. That's how you create change. I'm not dismissing the Black Lives Matter protests or any of these protests. You need both. You need people in the streets for awareness, for media attention, to help your organizing. But at the end of the day, what you need more than anything is economic protest, organized economic boycott. Look at Amazon, for example. If you stopped Amazon cold in its tracks for a week, you'll see real change real quick. You know how you do that? You make one national pot of money, whether it's a GoFundMe or whatever else, that everybody puts in. Every progressive, everybody who wants change, every working person puts in however much money to pay for Amazon workers' hourly salary and a little bit more so that they could go on strike. You could say, Jordan, that's pie in the sky, whatever. It's a start. You pay their bills, whether it's Amazon or others. They know we have their back. They know there's a pot of money, and that's where your rent money's coming for the month while you strike. That's a start. I'm not saying that's the only way, but it's a way. And it's not just Amazon, by the way. It's a lot of other companies ruling this world and country. Welcome new Status Coup member, Stephen. Holy cow. Thank you, Stephen. Now at 1,732 members. It's been slow comings in the membership category, but we appreciate every new member. Statuscoup.com/join. I think we already had our members call this month. I can't promise we're going to have another one because I am moving soon and very busy with the moving and also getting married soon. So I got a lot going on right now. But we will have another members call soon, and we will have some new members only videos coming up soon. So sign up as a member, statuscoup.com/join. We very, very much appreciate it. And for those that asked, we can't sell the flag in the store because it's not ours. It's copyrighted by another company. However, we are thinking about making our own flag. So stay tuned for that. Maxwell, I thought Status Coup already reached 2K. We were close, Maxwell. We were close. Unfortunately, COVID happened. We were over 1,900 members before COVID, and unfortunately, we've lost a whole lot of members. I'm just keeping it real because of COVID. Not to death, just cancellations, people losing their jobs. And every morning, it seems I wake up and we lose another couple through credit cards being declined or people sending us very nice emails saying we love you, but lost my job, my hours are cut, gotta cut costs. So unfortunately, we've lost a lot of members. So we're doing everything we can to keep growing, but it's definitely hard when our viewership is not the limousine liberals. Our viewership is the working class man and woman. And a lot of working class men and women right now are hurting. So let me get the super chats. Denise Columbia, $5. Can you put those flags in Status Coup store? I want one. Unfortunately, no, as I just explained. Jonas Levinson, 200 SEK. Miserable B-Day, Jordan. My B-Day's in 4 days. Hopefully it's not miserable, but thank you for the super chat. What else? I don't see any others. Let me make sure I didn't miss any GoFundMes. Thank you, Juan, $5 in the GoFundMe. We're now $355 away. $355. So if there's a patriotic American or non-American who wants to bring us to that $120,000 mark, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. So that's all I got for today. Be back tomorrow. Definitely, we have more clips to post. If you missed Jason's live reporting from yesterday, we have more clips to post from there. I also interviewed Kevin Gostola. He's the managing editor of Shadowproof. He's been following the Julian Assange extradition hearing in the United Kingdom very, very closely. So we posted that interview earlier if you missed it. And as a reminder, I will be interviewing Green Party candidate Howie Hawkins tomorrow. For those of you screaming, Jordan, don't do it, you're helping Trump. Sorry, I'm not going to ignore the Democratic Party trying to purge the Green Party off the ballots in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and elsewhere. That ain't democracy. That ain't the way you win. And it's, you can't say we have a democracy where if you have a good idea and if you have bold policies and visions, you could win if the Democratic Party is trying to rig the elections to make sure a third-party candidate can't be on the ballot. I'm sorry, you might think Trump is the worst thing ever, and I agree, but that doesn't mean you can purge the Green Party off of the ballot when they've done everything they need to do to be ballot eligible. If you are okay with that, then you are okay with a never-ending two-party duopoly and not ever having the opportunity to have more than two choices. And I ain't down with that. So we'll have that interview tomorrow. Howie Hawkins, the Green Party candidate. Thank you for watching. As I've been saying throughout this broadcast, right now we are a lot more reliant than typically on GoFundMe just because of COVID and, the little pause in membership growth. Not that we're not trying to grow our membership, so you definitely sign up as a member if you can. If you can't, we totally get it. If you don't know, just a reminder, as the cold weather starts here on the East Coast, we do have a merchandise store. We get a ton of cool stuff from phone covers to now we got socks in the store, Status Coup stocks. We have Status Coup hoodies, Status Coup long sleeve shirts. There's the hoodie. And now Status Coup dog hoodies, which I can't wait for. Status Coup workout pants, Status Coup stickers, Status Coup mugs, tote bags. I mean, it gets better and better. And somebody did ask me about a Status Coup snow hat. So I think we're going to have to do that for the winter too. So definitely check out the Status Coup store and get your merchandise now, including Status Coup hat. Not this one. We have a new one, which I think is better. Thank you for watching. If you're new, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.